Hi, I'm Andrew from Webb & Warehouse. In this video I'm going to show you how to assemble your G-Tramp Force 8x12 trampoline. There are a lot of safety features packed into this trampoline, and there is a certain assembly sequence to follow to avoid redoing certain steps. This trampoline is made with endurance in mind, so items are typically heavier and larger to handle. This trampoline can be assembled by one person, however the help of a second person will make it a lot easier. You should allow 2 to 3 hours for assembly, and before we get started, here's some items we suggest to help with this assembly. A pair of gloves, a rubber mallet, grease and some rags, preferably scissors or a knife, a ratchet with a 10mm socket, and lastly, a step ladder. Go ahead and open up the boxes. Now be sure to use scissors when cutting plastic straps. We recommend not using a knife, as we have seen mats and pads accidentally cut through and damaged, which is a disappointing way to start your assembly. Once you've opened the boxes, lay out the frame pieces next to each other on the ground, as per the layout diagram in the manual. Take care to get them in the correct order and make sure the spring holes all face up. Here we can see our frame laid out. You should have your A legs matched with your A corner frame pieces, and likewise with the parts labelled B. You'll also notice the long side frame pieces and the frame connectors are designed with a slight bend. We suggest greasing all frame and leg joints, as it will help with reducing annoying squeaks that can develop over time. It also assists with assembly and ensures a longer frame lifespan. Be sure to use a general purpose grease, as spray lubricants like WD-40 really only have a temporary effect. Begin by assembling the legs. Make sure the vertical extension bottom hole lines up with the lower leg piece, as these will be used later to mount the net poles. Now that we've assembled all 4 legs, we can start to build the upper frame. Take the short end frame piece and connect one A and one B leg to each end. Then loosely sit the 2 long side frame pieces into the 2 ends, making sure the long side pieces bow outwards. Install the frame joiners to the long side of each corner. You'll notice the frame joiner has a deliberate bend in it. The bend faces outwards. Then you can install the corresponding corner frame pieces starting at the short end. You'll need to lift the long frame off its leg to enable the long side connection. Once you have installed all the legs, it's worth going around and checking all the leg net pole mounting holes are aligned. You might need to make some slight adjustment by rotating the vertical leg extensions. Make sure the top hole is aligned first. If the bottom hole is not aligned, then to rectify, remove and rotate the bottom leg piece. This is very important because this helps later on when you're installing the net poles. A quick tip: be sure to check all the frame joints are fully honed to avoid any rework. Also, we find that placing A springs at the frame joiners will prevent the frame coming apart until the mat is fully installed. Now that the frame is assembled, we can now get onto the mat and pad assembly. Be careful not to have any sharp items nearby that could damage the mat. Open the mat box and lay it out. Make sure the warning label is facing up. First, install 3 springs into each corner like so. You will notice we have missed the last spring on each end. There is a good reason for this, as it will help with installing the pads and its safety barrier. All the springs are the same length, including the springs that go diagonally in the corner. Do not install any more springs at this stage. Now we need to place the pads on the trampoline, as there is a safety barrier that needs to be installed at the same time as the rest of the mat. Install the pad safety barrier slit over the mat triangle and install a spring. Note, the diagonal corner spring doesn't have a barrier slit. Do the same on the opposite end to stretch the barrier so the slits in between line up. Repeat this for all sides. Now fill in the gaps. Once we have fitted all the safety barrier slits to the triangles, we can start to install more springs. Working from the corners to the frame centre, install the springs opposite each other. It's handy to have two people working on opposite sides to speed this process up. We need to redo our original corner springs to complete the mat installation. Now, to complete the pad installation, we'll need to install the pad bungee cords. Start by installing the inner bungee cords, as there is excellent access at this stage. Thread the bungee through the fabric inner tab and then through the two closest mat triangles. The plastic head then sits in the loop tail and swivels at 90 degrees to lock securely. Quick tip: the bungee is secured to the plastic by a fine lip inside. If pulled hard in line like this, it's possible to pull the bungee right out. Don't worry, this can be re-threaded by feeding it back through the head. However, this can be avoided altogether by pulling the cord at right angles when stretching to install. Next, do the outside bungees. To thread the outer bungees through the eyelets, pinch the eyelets together like so. Once installed through the eyelets, work the bungee around the frame and tie off. We have now completed the lower half of the trampoline. This is the halfway mark, as the net will still take some time to complete. Alright, let's get on to the net assembly. Start by connecting the upper and lower net poles together. You can easily identify the lower net pole by the black cap. Then install the eye bolts onto the lower net pole. You can either remove the foam or the bottom black cap to install these. Reinstall the foam or cap and attach the lower pole. Tighten the nuts, finger tight only at this stage. Make sure you have two foams on each of your vertical net poles. Place and unfold the net onto the trampoline. We find it's best to stand on the trampoline for this. Remove shoes and locate the entrance. This can only go on the long side. Slide the net sleeves over the poles, about 200mm, and repeat this process till the net has come all the way down to the pads. Now we can start to assemble the upper net. First, install the net T-pieces on the top of each net pole. Quick tip here: if you're installing a basketball set, then select which vertical pole it's to be installed on. Then fit both basketball eye bolts like so. The rest of the basketball set can then be installed later once the rest of the trampoline is built. Now remove all upper poles from the box and remove the foams. Do this except for the top corners. You'll notice all the upper net poles are the same length. However, the foam lengths vary and these need to match the sleeve lengths. Then slide the foams into the upper net sleeves and then followed by the poles. Some quick tips: if you're on the short side like myself, consider having a taller person help or even use a step ladder. This step can be done by one person, however 2 people will definitely make this job a lot easier. Make sure not to put any loose poles on the trampoline mat or pads, as they can accidentally graze or cut them. Ideally, have someone hand one pole up to the person on the trampoline at a time. Prepare each join by exposing both pole ends so you can see and align the spring clips. Then while pressing down the spring clip, connect the 2 poles. Make sure with each join that the spring clips are installed and correctly seated, as this prevents the upper net structure from coming apart. If you're finding any joint difficult to complete, here are a couple of tips. You can either temporarily remove a nearby upper T-joint or the lower net pole mounts to get more flexibility into the area. Ensure you have worked the foams to expose the ends of the joint you're attempting to join. Once you have finished the upper net structure, you'll need to attach the bottom net straps. These go around the outside of the frame and clip onto the mat spring triangles underneath. Then tighten all the nuts on the lower net pole brackets. Do not over tighten, as you can strip these threads. If necessary, finish installing any other accessories such as a basketball set or a wind anchor kit. Otherwise, you can go ahead and finish up by placing the ladder onto the frame. Well, there you go. I hope you found this video useful and that your family gets as much value and enjoyment out of this trampoline as my family has out of ours. Thanks for watching.